Alrighty, so I actually just got back home from a ground hop, which is why this review is upload relatively late. And I am assure you that I did watch all three of these game three in full, just like I've done throughout the playoffs. And all I'll say is, so far in the playoffs, you're not entertained in terms of what we're seeing in the playoffs. I mean, the sheer upsets in these playoffs has just been absolutely maddening. And even though I said a couple of weeks ago in the playing round that I just had a feeling this is the year where there's going to be a lot of big upset in the MLS playoff. Nothing is compared to what we've seen so far in the first round, including probably the biggest upset we have ever seen in MLS history. And we'll definitely get to that game, a game that I'm pretty sure you guys have been wanting me to talk about for a while now. But let us begin with the first game, which is Cincinnati versus NYCFC. So this is actually the first time in MLS history where we see a team lose in game number one of the best of three series, end up still move on into the next round. Though I gotta say, this was a game where it just felt like nobody wanted to move on to the conference semifinal. And even as a neutral, it was pretty painful seeing that penalty kick shootout. And I think it's even more painful and agonizing if you're either of these teams, unless of course in the end, if you're an NYCFC fan, you're probably happy about that because ultimately they did win the PK shootout in a shootout where not only it went on for a while, but it just feels like it's a shootout that nobody wants to win. Now, in the first half, NYCFC had most of the possession early, but really not much happened early as it's been a very cagey game, and that's kind of the theme throughout this game. It was a really cagey game. It wasn't really an exciting game, though. Again, in a game three like that in a pivotal game like that, I guess both teams just kind of want to play it safe a little bit. Yedlin would put it just wide as that was the game's first shot in the 10th minute before Assad would put one into Northern Kentucky. The possession was 62 to 38 in favor of NYCFC early on, but the shots were still 2-0 for Cincinnati 20 minutes in. Martinez would have a shot that was deflected and goes wide. That was also the first shot for NYCFC in the 23rd minute. The possession still heavily in favor of NYCFC at 57 to 43, but overall, it's just been a very tight game with neither of these teams were doing much in the final third. Freeze would then deny Origiano from close in the 31st before Assad would put it over from long range. Then Wobodo would put it over from long range in the 39th minute as Cincinnati started to gain some momentum on the attack and they started to look for the lead late in the first half. Kubo would then flash one wide from long range, and as a result of all these pressure, the shots went out 8-2 for Cincinnati, and NYCFC feel like they're on the ropes, and this is kind of starting to feel very similar to game one, where once Cincinnati started to get roll, they eventually or actually, once Cincinnati would start to get on a roll, they eventually will find the opener, and NYCFC, they just were hoping that they can head to halftime with a 0-0 scoreline. And they almost didn't because in the first minute of stoppage time, Oriano went beast mode here. He basically took on the entire NYCFC defense. Somehow, in some way, still found himself in on goal, but he just missed that one wide, and we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. In the second half, just like the first half, NYCFC had most of the possession early, but really not finding much success creating any chances against a well-sounded Cincinnati defense. Origiano then hits one right to Freeze in the 51st minute. There was a shot for a penalty for Cincinnati not given in the 55th minute, and just like the first half, really there's not much chances that was being created. Though, unlike the first half, this was due to the fact that there was a lot of whistle and a lot of stop and go action. Again, it was a very cagey game throughout this one, and it just kind of had a sense that it's got to a point where I'm thinking, yeah, this is one of those games where one goal might be enough, or we're gonna go to a PK shootout with the scoreline deadlock at 0-0. Wolf would then puts one that ends up to be a throw in, and yeah, that just kind of sums up this game in attack for NYCFC and maybe Cincinnati too, because again, neither of these teams really done well. It just feels like this is a one goal game. Somebody's gonna have to provide that moment of magic, or else this is gonna go to PK scoreless. Assad tried to do so, but he hits it right to Freeze before Yetlin hits the side netting in the 73rd minute. Cincinnati once again start to create some chances. The question is, can they put one away? And NYCFC, I also thought that they were turning ball over way too much in their own end. Just so many careless turnover. Now the good news is Cincinnati wasn't really capitalizing on these mistakes, but you can't just keep doing that. Just keep giving the ball away and find yourself in deep in your own half. Oriano then hits one right to Freeze in the 74th minute before Martinez looked like he scored the opening goal for NYCFC, Problem was the flag did not agree with him, and he was in an offside position as a result, and it was pretty obvious. I mean, he was at least a yard or two offside, but 2 minutes into stoppage time, there was also no word of how many stoppage that we would have, which was kind of odd because I was assuming eventually they're gonna have to announce the stoppage time, and they announced that there was only 5 minutes of stoppage time, which seems way too low. I mean, there was so much stop and go action, and there was so many injuries that happened in the second half. And for a playoffs where it feels like this playoffs, stoppage time has been added more than ever before, and I think you can even say that in the regular season as well. It feels like ever since we saw what happened in the World Cup in 2022, where they decided to just add on incredible long amount of stoppage time for no reason whatsoever. It was kind of surprising. There was only 5 minutes. I thought there was going to be at least 7 or 8 minutes or even 10 minutes of stoppage time in the second half. But in the 6 minute stoppage time, Parks had a chance to win it for NYCFC late, but he hits it right to Sanitano. So we are going to go to a PK shootout because, again, this just felt like it was one of those games where it had PK shootout written all over it. And in the PK shootout, like I said, it just feels like nobody wants to win this either. No one decided to convert their penalty in round 6 and 7, and these were not great penalties. I mean, even when both goalkeeper saved it in round number 6, both of those penalty wasn't really hit that well, and it was pretty easy for the goalkeeper to guess it. And at least those were at least on target because in round number 7, it decided that if you thought those penalty was worse, guess what? In round number 7, it looks like both PK Taker didn't even bother putting it on target. They basically puts it into the Bailey. But ultimately, in round number 8, we did see the winning penalty that is being hit as Illich would hits the winning penalty in round number 8 after 5 consecutive missed penalty, and that include Hidebi missing his previous attempt, and he also didn't put that one on target as well. So yeah, in the end, NYCFC they survive in a PK shootout that looked like no one wants to win, and they're moving on into the next round, and we're gonna have a New York Derby too in the next round as well. So as crazy as the Eastern Conference playoff is heading into the conference semifinal, we're gonna have some bangers in terms of rivalry game in the Eastern Conference, as I'll mention in a bit. With the New York Derby happening in one part of the bracket. For the shots in this one, 16 shots for the 7 that NYCFC had, 1 shot on goal for the 4 that Cincinnati has, 8 shots off target for the 2 that NYCFC had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 3 that Cincinnati has, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to the 48% possession that NYCFC has in this game. And by the way, the New York Derby that we're going to have in the conference semifinal, it's the first time we ever will see a New York Derby and a Hudson River Derby in the playoffs. And you know that the Red Bulls will want to have some big revenge after NYCFC absolutely thrashed them in the last New York Derby. But we'll talk about more of that when I do a preview of these conference semifinal game. But yeah, for Cincinnati, I mean, if you're a Cincinnati fan, as much as I know it's got to be very disappointed that not only they didn't get themselves a chance to go deep once again like they did last season back into the conference final and have a chance to redeem themselves after losing that and really choking that game away against the Crew. I mean, I don't think a lot of Cincinnati fans are surprised by this. Consider it just feels like the writings are on the wall with the way that they haven't really been playing very well in the second half of the season. And really, that 6-1 victory against Inter Miami early in the season, who would have thought that that was kind of the beginning of the end for the Cincinnati team? Because after that, they've gone on a bad run. Injuries kind of took a toll of this team, and then the worst part now about this team is that the offense basically just gone quiet in this playoffs. I mean, they only scored 1 goal in this best of three, or no, they scored 2 goal in these best of three series. I forgot they scored one in game 2 as well. But when you only score 2 goals in these best of three series, I mean, more times or not, you're not going to be moving on into the next round of the playoffs. And yeah, again, it's got to be very disappointing if you're a Cincinnati fan, but something that maybe you kind of saw it coming. Now, moving on in the next match, we got Orlando and Charlotte FC, and we actually almost came very close in terms of seeing all three team in today's game three, all getting eliminated. And really, we probably should have saw it because for Charlotte, yeah, they should have won this game. I mean, they really choked this one away. They play a perfect road game in this one against Orlando, and they gave up a penalty late in the game, and that pretty much just completely. That's when the not only they hit the self destruct button, but it kind of happened in the PK shootout as well. Now in the first half, almost a disastrous moment there from Charlotte as Reem actually backpassed this one to Kalina, but Kalina was not expecting, and he fumbled that one, and he was very lucky he was able to gather before any Orlando City player was able to pounce on it. But there was no doubt that Orlando was on the front foot. They were looking for an early opener. Diani would then hits one right to Galese before Schlegel had a free header there, but he hits this one right to Kalina. The shots were one apiece early for both of these teams. And then in the 70th minute, the Pulse would deny Torres from close range. And then it would deny Torres again in the 21st minute, this time from the header. And up to this point, yeah, if you're a Orlando fan, you must be kicking yourself. How in the world are you not up 1-0? And that would be the theme, at least for most of this game, where Orlando really squandered a lot of chances in this one. But yeah, at this point, I said they're pounding on the door. But the question is, can they beat the Post, who is pretty much Charlotte MVP so far early in this one? Ajiman then hits it right to Galese in the 23rd minute before Angulo almost scored an own goal off the deflection. And really, this is kind of the formula for Charlotte, where throughout this best of three series for Charlotte, it's kind of like at times it's bend but don't break, and they did a lot of that on the road, at least in both of these games in Orlando, and it kind of worked out pretty well. Well, it didn't work out in game number one, but it almost worked out in game number three in this one. And really, as I said, after furious pressure, Charlotte seems like they get a foothold to this game. They were looking to trying to get the lead. Polina would then deny Ojeda in the front post on the other end before Enrique would hit one into the stands on the volley. The shots were now 6-3 for Orlando 34 minutes in. Though there was a shot for a handball for Orlando not given, we then had a small coming together as things were starting to get a little bit physical. Not a big surprise because anytime when you play the same opponent three times in a short amount of period, yeah, there's going to be some hatred that is going to happen. But then in the 45th minute, Ajiman thought that he gives Charlotte a 1-0 lead. The problem was the goal was disallowed for offside. Now, I only saw one angle in terms of this play, and that angle that they show was not a great angle whatsoever. Though in that bad angle, it definitely looked like Ajiman was level with the last defender. I think it was for Holson, the one that played him onside. But again, it wasn't really a great angle. I wish they would have shown us another angle as well. But yeah, in the end, the goal, of course, was disallowed. And I know Charlotte fans are going to be very upset about this call, and they might blame this call as one of the reasons why they lost this game. But as we'll see, maybe there's another reason why they lost this game. But in the second half, there was a shot for a penalty for Charlotte. Away fans not given. Oh, by the way, there was a lot of Charlotte away fans. I saw a lot of blue inside that stadium. Definitely more than I've ever seen in terms of away fans in the playoffs. They were definitely representing and making some noise in that stadium. But really, just like the first half, Orlando was on the front foot. They were looking for the opener. Enrique would then heads it wide on a free header. And again, these missed chances, it's got to be agonizing if you're an Orlando City fan. Is it going to come back to haunt them, especially with the way that Charlotte at times they have looked optimistic on the attack? And really, again, that's the formula of Charlotte. They're going to play that bend but don't break, and they're going to be optimistic with their chances, kind of playing a game that a lot of road team usually want to do when they're playing on the road in MLS. But in the 65th minute, Vargas would hits the side ending from close before Muriel would hits it right to Kalina in the 68th. Then he puts it wide from long range. The shots were now 14-4 for Orlando. Yet it just feels like this game kind of is up for grabs, isn't it? I mean, yes, Orlando is really dominated in terms of the shots, but it feels like even with the four shots, Charlotte they look like they out of those four shots are just almost equal amount as big chances as we've seen Orlando had throughout this game. Pep Biel then puts it high from long range in the 71st minute before Kalina denied Maguire as the flag went up. So even if Maguire puts it into the back of net, it wouldn't have counted. But then the 81st minute, the breakthrough finally happened. It's Karol Świderski. He scored from Abada to give Charlotte a 1-0 lead. It also took a deflection as well. But there you go. This is what Charlotte's been waiting for. They were optimistic in terms of their chances, and they punished Orlando of not putting away their chances. And really, up to this point, it feels like the storyline of this game is one team were more clinical in front of their finishing, one team wasn't, and that's kind of how Charlotte was able to move on into the next round, right? Well, after the go ahead goal, there was a huge shout for a penalty for Orlando, not given. And I also thought that Charlotte was starting to hang on for dear life a little bit, and Orlando was pouring on the pressure to try to get the late equalizer. Now, normally when you try to do that, as we see in the regular season, it doesn't quite work out so well. But in the playoffs, we have seen teams have done really good job in terms of just kind of locking things down. But in the third minute of stoppage time, Arujo would flash one wide from long range before Muriel had a free kick that was deflected off the wall and goes out of play. But then in the 7 minute of stoppage time, penalty was given to Orlando. And this was Diani, the one that brought down Maguire in the box that caused the penalty to be given. They did also check VAR to see indeed if that was a penalty. And I was kind of surprised they even gone to VAR because it was pretty obvious that Maguire was pulled down by Diani. You can clearly see the shirt pull that is happening, and that anytime when that happens, I mean, that's obviously going to be a penalty. But I guess maybe they want to check it just to knowing that this is such a pivotal game. You don't want to make sure you make any mistakes, and eventually the VAR says yes, though it doesn't really help in terms of Orlando fans thinking that, oh boy, every time whenever they go to VAR, yeah, most of the time they're gonna overturn it for something egregious, right? Well, fortunately it wasn't, and eventually VAR says that the call stand, and rightfully so. It was definitely a penalty. So here comes Facundo Torres, a chance to steps up to take the penalty to send this to a PK shootout, and he actually missed the penalty. Kalina was actually able to deny him from the spot. But fortunately for Orlando and for Facu Torres, it came right back to him, and he slots that one in. And yeah, just like that, the game was tied up at one apiece, and we go to the PK shootout. And you kind of had a sense with all after Orlando scoring that such a late goal. I mean, the momentum was all with them. That goal really broke Charlotte, and it kind of carried into the PK shootout as well because in the PK shootout, eventually Rafael Santos would win the PK shootout in round number 4. So while this one went on for a relatively long time, this one was relatively quick. And really, they can thank Galese too because Galese denied both Pepiao and Shredetsky in the first 2 rounds of the penalty. That is something you do not see how often saying that both of their two of their best penalty kick taker for Charlotte missing their penalty as well. But again, it just feels like the psychologic coming into the PK shootout. And if you're a Charlotte, I mean, after just giving up such a heartbreaking late goal like this in this game, that has to be tough to swallow heading into the PK shootout as well. But yeah, in the end, Orlando they win in the PK shootout. They're moving on into the next round to play against Atlanta United in the other big rivalry game that we're going to see in the Eastern Conference semifinal. But shots in this one, 21 shots for the 6 that Shard has, 3 shots on goal for the 6 that Orlando has, 8 shots off target for the 2 that Shard has, 1 shot on block for the 4 that Orlando City has, and possession-wise, 61% possession compared to 39% possession that Charlotte has in this game. And like I said, for Charlotte, they really blew this game. I mean, they had this game won. If they didn't just commit that silly penalty, which looking back at that penalty, there was no need for Diani to bring down Maguire there. I mean, that ball wasn't actually going to get to Maguire. That was just a really clumsy kind of challenge, which is something you just don't say about the Charlotte team. Like, it's kind of ironic that the strength of the Charlotte team this season would ultimately be their ultimate demise in the playoffs, which is on the back line. But yeah, that's how this playoff works. I mean, in this playoffs, at least after what we see today, nothing really makes sense anymore. You just can't. You might as well just throw all the past history and all the optics out of the way because once we get into the playoffs, there's a reason why anything can happen once we get to it. Which is why now we're gonna switch boards and talk about the game that I'm pretty sure everybody been waiting for me to talk about. So here we go. This is the game that I'm pretty sure everybody been waiting for me to talk about, as I would say that this is probably the biggest upset we have ever seen in MLS history. And something tells me that somewhere in New York, Don Gabbard is probably still crying right now, and even the Apple TV CEO is probably still crying right now because they know that the viewership and the TV rating for the rest of the playoffs might absolutely tank, even if that means that we're gonna see some big rivalry game that's gonna be happening in the Eastern Conference semifinal. Like honestly, nowadays they're just kind of praying that at least they're gonna see an out Traffico in the Western Conference final. But yeah, in the end, Atlanta did it. They pull off the big upset. And honestly, in these three games that I saw, I know in game number one, some might say it's kind of a fluke. The fact that Guzan was kind of the reason why Atlanta barely lost that game, but you just kind of had a sense that going back to game number one, when I talked about how Guzan had that insane performance, that really have gave hope for this Atlanta team, and that it feels like yes, Inter Miami were looking the head and shoulder the better side, but with belief they might pull it off in game number two and maybe even in game number three. Guess what they did? They took that belief, they pulled it off in game number two with a late winner to send this in a pivotal game number three, and then in this one, really this was a perfect road game for Atlanta United, and also a combination of Inter Miami of how this is not the first time I've seen this team missing big chances, and as much as I know this team has come up with big moments and scoring some late goals, I have seen lately that they have had problems in terms of their finishing, and then let's also not forget that the biggest problem I think coming into this season and really heading into the playoff as well is, will this Miami defense hold up? This is pretty much the biggest Achilles heel that they have heading into the playoffs. And I think we found out the answer after tonight. And the answer is a resounding no. Now, in the first half, the first shot of the game did see Redondo puts it over from long range. And as expected, Miami had most of the ball and were on the front foot as Atlanta were looking to try to weather the early storm. The post would then deny TRA as that was Atlanta's first shot. So yeah, talk about almost getting a surprising 1-0 lead and getting a goal against the run of play. But then in the 17th minute, and again, when you don't bury your chances, and even if the post victimize you, you're gonna come back. It's gonna come back to haunt you. And at least I will also say that at some point in this game, it just feels like this was gonna be tipped in favor of Inter Miami, and it looks like the script was gonna go according to Inter Miami favorite because in the 17th minute, Rojas would score the opening goal for Inter Miami. Guzan once again robbing Messi in this one. Eventually, just a little spoiler, Messi would get the better of Guzan, but throughout the series, yeah, Guzan has made Messi his father in this game. I mean, he has single-handedly denied the goal time after time again, but unfortunately here it falls right to Rojas, who puts it into the back net, and just like that, Inter Miami took a 1-0 lead early on, and you're just thinking, well, this has gone according to the script. This is going to be like the last game where they took the early in. They should be able to easily win this game, right? Well, no, because that lead barely lasted 2 minutes. As after TRA hits the post in the 15th minute, he would get on the score sheet. He scored from Dax McCarty to tie the game up at one apiece. This was probably the best game that Dax McCarty has played in a Atlanta United jersey. Pretty much ever. And it just feels like this was also a game where Dax McCarty was just simply handling say, screw your narrative. This is not going to be the end of my career. I am going to do everything to try to extend my career. And yeah, he definitely played like there is no tomorrow. And it kind of makes sense because there is no tomorrow for him, knowing that he's going to retire either if Atlanta eliminated this game or in the near future. And then just 2 minutes later, guess what? TRA scores again. He scored for Marinchik and McCarty to make it 2-1 in favor of Atlanta. And while the traveling Atlanta fans, and there was definitely some, and even their owner Arthur Blanks make the trip to watch this game, they were going absolutely nuts. The rest of the 21,000, it was stunned silent. Like you could hear a pin drop at Chase Stadium because they are stunned of how their team looked like they were up 1-0. It was all according to the script, and now all of a sudden they found themselves behind the eight ball and down 2-1 in this one. And also, not to mention, that also came off a bad turnover for Miami in the midfield. And yeah, again, the Achilles heel of this Inter Miami team. And keep in mind, they didn't have Sergio Busquets for most of this game. I think that played a pivotal role too because he at times can really control that midfield, and not having him and also Yannick Bright as well. That is a huge blow to this Inter Miami team, and it wasn't in full circle in this game of how that weakness was fully exposed throughout this game. So that being said, in the 25th minute, it looked like Atlanta lead was short lived because Diego Gomez would put the ball into the back of net. But the goal was eventually disallowed, and it was disallowed relatively late. Like the flag didn't come up after about 20 or 30 seconds or so. They even shoot off the fireworks, thinking the game was tied up. But the goal, of course, was disallowed for offside, and rightfully so. And I also wrote, "What is defending?" Because at this point, it just feels like it was nowhere to be found, which is kind of crazy to see. Because after watching the first two games, where it was kind of a defensive minded kind of game and both team doing very well in the defense, it was kind of crazy to see how the defense in this game was just nowhere to be found whatsoever. It feels like I was watching an El Trafico in this game rather than a pivotal game three between Inter Miami and Atlanta United. There was a shout for a penalty for Miami not given, and then Guzan and Suarez kind of had some choice work because Guzan was not impressed with the dive of Suarez, and honestly, I don't blame him for that, and that if that was anybody besides Luis Suarez, that really could have been a book for simulation, and maybe even the district committee finding that specific player for a simulation on Monday because yeah, Luis Suarez, we know his antics before, and he definitely was at the center of the antics and dark arts throughout this game as well. But yeah, clearly that was a dive there. It was not a penalty. Then there was a shout for a handball for Miami that was not given either in the 33rd minute. Guzan then denied Messi from long range because Messi simply cannot buy a goal against Guzan. He's clearly in his head right now up to this point. Suarez then hits it wide from the free kick. Messi then had a shot that was deflected and wide. Martinez would then hits it wide, and then on the ensuing, or yeah, he hits it wide on the ensuing corner. Before on the other end, TRA was in on goal again and trying to complete his hat trick, but he actually was tripped up by a counter. It wouldn't matter either way whether or not that was a penalty or not because TRA was in an offside side position. And then on the other end, Guzan would deny Suarez from close. Up to this point, I just say, can we not have the halftime break? Because up to this point, it was just back and forth, and it just feels like yeah, this first half has just gone into complete bonkers mode. It feels like MLS dark all over again. But unfortunately, we do head to halftime with the scoreline with Atlanta leading 2-1. Well, at least unfortunate if you're in an Inter Miami perspective. But heading into the second half, Messi would puts it wide off the deflection. There was another shot for a handball in the box not given for Miami. There was no doubt that just like the first half, Miami was on the front foot. They were looking for the equalizer. Atlanta was kind of sitting in a deep block, but they were still looking for those counter moment. And again, normally when you decide to do that, even against Inter Miami, you better hope you have a very good defense because more times than not, that is not gonna work. But really, throughout this game, it kind of worked out well because Atlanta looked really dangerous on the transition throughout this game. Though in the 51st minute, Guzan absolutely robbed Jordi Alba in the front post on a free header, and it just feels like it's a repeat of the Brad Guzan show that we saw in game number one, where he single-handedly carried this Atlanta team and trying to single-handedly win this game and just kind of torn up the script of that Miami would win this game free to move on to the next round. Gregerson then hits it wide from close in the 61st minute before Williams had a free header here, but he missed that one wide from close as now Atlanta started creating chances again, but you just kind of have to feel like they need to cash in one or two of these chances because you cannot leave this game at 2-1 and think that Atlanta is going to walk away with the win, and that's exactly what happened because in the 65th minute, finally the greatest player of all time is able to solve Guzan as he scored here from Wangan and Suarez to tie the game up at two apiece. And again, you're thinking the script say, well, they got the equalizer. Now it seems like Miami is on their way to try to get the win. Now, also after the equalizer, it's also worthy to note that Guzan actually tried to pick up the ball after the ball hits into the back net and trying to delay the restart. But yeah, that definitely did not go so well with the Inter Miami player because he was actually first shoved into the net by Campana, and while he was still in the netting and got stuck in the netting, Suarez was having some choice words to Guzan, and there was no card being handed out in terms of that moment. I mean, honestly, as much as that is a very upsetting kind of moment. I mean, are you surprised? I mean, this is Inter Miami after all. You know they're gonna get the benefit of the doubt. I mean, if this was any other team, there should have been at least a card or maybe even a red card being shown to Campana as well because what he did there. I mean, that I am just almost bewildered the fact that he didn't get a yellow on that. But at the same time, I'm also not bewildered because Again, this is Inter Miami we're talking about. Suarez then just missed one on the outstretched leg. Again, to this point, the script seems like, yeah, eventually Inter Miami is going to get this third goal and move on to the next round, right? I mean, they had all the momentum, right? And then in the 76th minute, Atlanta decided that, yeah, we're not gonna go according to the script because Brandon Schlates, a guy that has not scored a lot of goals for this Atlanta team. In fact, I feel like he only scored one so far coming into this game against Inter Miami. But he scored here probably the biggest goal in his career from Amador to make it 3-2 in favor of Atlanta. I gotta say, Pedro Amador, I feel like there's got to be more talk about this guy. He has been a guy that was brought during the summer transfer window and are just started quietly having a great season and a great impact for this Atlanta United team, especially his crosses too. I mean, between him and Brooks Lennon, and he's really stepped into the Brooks Lennon role as well. Probably the one of the best crosser we have seen so far in this playoffs. But yeah, he or him and Bartosz would retake the lead for Atlanta United, and Miami would pretty much just stop playing as that ball was crossed to the box. They feel like Alvarez or they feel like the whistle should have been gone after Alvarez went down into the box with an injury. And I understand that, that could be a very frustrating thing when you're a team and you see a player went down with an injury. Maybe the referee should have blown for the whistle, but at the same time, there's a reason why we seen at times where, unless if it's a head injury, the referee will never blow the whistle, and that, Atlanta they have no obligation of playing that one out. Now, if Inter Miami has the ball, then if they play it out, then that of course is so be it. But Atlanta doesn't need to do it, and they were on the attacking front. But what's even more criminal is the fact that Miami just kind of stopped playing when the ball crossed it in. Like, there's a reason why you always want to play to the whistle, and even though you're frustrated in terms of the whistle not being go for a certain injury, you can't just simply stop playing like that. And ultimately, that would be a devastating decision, and a decision that pretty much is going to be talked about throughout this offseason for Inter Miami, and one of the downfall of them in this playoffs. As, yeah, just like that, Atlanta retake the lead. It's 3-2. Messi looked to respond on the free kick from 25 yards out, but he hits this one into the wall. And then Rios puts a weak shot to counter after a lightning counter from Atlanta. And yeah, Danny Rios would want to have that one back. That should have been 4-2 for Atlanta up to this point. Martinez would then hits it right to Guzan before Suarez hits it high in the back post. Taylor then had a shot that was clear off the line in the second minute of stoppage time. Atlanta and pretty much all the MLS neutral, including myself, are just holding their nerves. Like, as I was watching this game live, even I was getting really nervous and almost sweating because, yeah, Miami, we seen it before in this script that they have been able to get a late winner, just somehow magically able to send this to a PK shootout. Heck, we even saw it last year too, in the Leeds Cup as well, where time and time again, just as you thought that the Inter Miami was going to be defeated in a knockout game, they somehow pull a rabbit out of their hat and able to move on to the next round. So in the 7 minute stop sign, Guzan would deny Suarez on the header in the back post. But in the end, Atlanta United hold on. The late devil magic that Inter Miami been rely on ever since Messi and friends arrived was not to be found in this game. They're out of the playoffs too. As Atlanta's moving on to face against Orlando's City in the conference semifinal. The shots in this one, 27 shots for the 9 that Atlanta has, 4 shots on goal for the 10 that Miami has, 5 shots off target for the 3 that Atlanta has, 1 shot that was blocked for the 10 that Miami has, and possession-wise, 61% possession compared to 39% possession that Atlanta United has in this game. And tomorrow, I might even make a video looking back at some of the biggest upset that we have seen in MLS in the last 10 years, and maybe even talk about that compared to this game. I still think that this is probably after I rank all this is probably the biggest upset because, again, all the script are saying that Inter Miami move on to the next round. Like, literally, no one would have believed getting into this best of 3 series that Atlanta was going to do the impossible. But they did the impossible, and what's now even more crazy, and kind of ironic in the same case, is that now the next opponent that they face, as I mentioned, is Orlando City. That's the opponent is the reason why Atlanta is here. If Atlanta didn't beat Orlando City in the final game of the season, and also if it wasn't for VAR helping them in the final game of the season, they would not be here facing against Inter Miami. And I also would like to say that Atlanta, their playoff run this year really started reminds me of the RSL playoff run that we saw a couple of years ago. Remember how RSL snuck into the playoffs because of a late winner from Demir Kralak? It feels like this is kind of the same story. So something tells me that that means Atlanta United is probably going to make it to the Eastern Conference Final. Though again, we'll see if that's the case. Orlando would like to have a say with that. And speaking of Orlando, the road to MLS Cup in the Eastern Conference now goes through Inter and Co Stadium. Imagine if I say that a couple of weeks ago, and even if you say that to Orlando City fans that they would be the team that basically will now hold the home field advantage throughout the rest of the playoffs heading into MLS Cup. Like no Orlando City fans or even any sane MLS fans would believe that that is the case. But again, as I said before, it feels like this is a year where we're gonna see big upset and just the playoffs just gone completely wild with all these lower seeds doing well, and now we could see a situation where whoever represent the East, not only they might be one of the lowest seed we have ever seen in MLS Cup, but probably one of the most unlikely to do so as a result. And it also looking at the Western Conference itself, because I know I've been talking about a lot about the East. I mean, do you think this maybe is good news for a lot of these Western Conference teams, especially the LA team? That is because now, honestly, when you look at MLS Cup, the two teams that I thought was sure was going to make it to MLS Cup, either Inter Miami and Columbus, both of them are out of the playoffs. So now you kind of had a sense that it's kind of up for grabs for one of those LA team. But again, if there's something that you got to remember about this playoffs, nothing really makes sense. All past history can be taking the back seat, and I am very interesting to see how this conference semifinal is going to play. I don't think we're done when it comes to playoff upset. I think we're going to see more playoff upset. I'm just hoping maybe that means Minnesota will move on into the next round, causing a playoff upset against the Galaxy. I don't know, but I just feel like we're not done with these playoff upset, and that I'm gonna say that this is gonna go down. This could potentially go down as one of the best playoffs we have seen in league history, and it's such a shame the fact that we're not gonna see the conference semifinal until 2 weeks from now because again, because of this terrible playoff format, we have to wait 1 week for the international break, and then wait another week for the international break to be done before the conference semifinal officially begin. But the good news with that gap is that at least I can make videos and not just have to do review every single day, and that also means I might start do some more moving forward series episode because I want to get the teams that have already eliminated in the regular season done. I haven't finished that, and also I want to start talking about teams that got eliminated in the first round as well, and that include Inter Miami as well, because that's going to be a very interesting talking point, talking about this team and how again this is a team that I didn't think I was expecting to make a moving forward series until probably uh being one of the last team to do so, and maybe even a team I was going to talk about they're going to win MLS Cup, but now that they're out, the East is just wide open right now, and you can maybe even say right now the rest of the league. I mean, it's kind of almost up for grabs, even though I'm pretty sure people will say it seems like now the LA team has a clear path and are clear favorites of reaching MLS Cup and maybe winning the whole thing as a result. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these three games that has just completely turned the Eastern Conference side of the bracket upside down. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.